This episode of Nuff Said is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. To get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
Good evening, listeners. You have tuned in to a secret S.H.I.E.L.D. broadcast.
Ooh.
In this world of capes and lunatics, gods and monsters, there is a team who is dedicated to protecting you. A team of superhumans, inhumans,
Ooh.
not quite humans, and time travelers, all dedicated to protecting you. They are the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And this is Nuff Said. I'm your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me, as always, is my skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Mozz, welcome to tonight's episode, Season 7, Episode 8, After Before. With the Zephyr's time drive malfunctioning, the team hurtle towards disaster, with Yoyo as its only hope. Yoyo must enlist the help of an old adversary to regain her powers. Our director this week is Eli Gonda. Stanley and Jack Kirby, of course, getting those Marvel Created By credits. Down there on the lower line, we got your Joss Whedon, Jed Whedon, Marissa Tancharian, who have, of course, did our Created Bys. James C. Oliver and Charla Oliver. I don't know if that's a brother and sister team, if that's a husband and wife team, or a wife and husband team, or just two cousins. It's impossible to say right now. But they got our written by credits right now. Mark Leitner, he's the story editor. He's working hard. But you know who's the hardest working man in show business? That would be George Kitson, our executive story editor. Man works so hard as a story editor, he is now the executive story editor. And what he says goes. That's what power means, Mozz.
Oh, boy.
Okay. Oh, boy.
Hey, also it means, you get to get a planet named after you. That's not so bad.
Yes. What happens on Kitson burns and and lasts for 6 days. Yes. So, yeah, our good friend Kitson. But this is a really neat episode because it is a ship is in danger episode where the ship is malfunctioning and they need to fix it. And they do figure out that I guess they think that Yoyo could possibly fix it by taking out the, quantum bands, the quantum tentacle in between reboots, and that could save them.
But it's rebooting at 45 times a second, so...
Yeah. Well, one could argue, what if we just unplugged it and we just lived in the 80s? Like, can we just unplug it? Did they mention that in this episode? Did someone actually say, could we just unplug it?
Well, I think that's what they were doing. They were removing the power source.
Yeah, but they have to do it at just this moment. That's
right, because it's like spinning at 45 times a second. Now, I don't know anybody that can, move that fast to be able to do it without getting their arms chopped off.
Well, of course, as Coulson said, it actually cost me both arms. And hey, for what it's worth, and actually, literally, it cost Coulson both arms because when they wake him up, he's just a head. Which is also, I think, supposed to be very disconcerting for poor old Coulson because, he is. It's hitting him how inhuman he is, if you will.
Right. And I think a really interesting moment as it comes to putting Coulson back together is that tiny little moment you get where Agent Sousa decides to sit down next to being repaired Coulson, and he sticks his leg out a little bit like, hey, I could use a little bit of help too. What's up? You got some great technology. Can you build me something?
Yeah, well, that's. But hey, Sousa's been waiting. We got Sousa his leg. Sousa has his leg finally in that nice little tuba case, which I thought was a nice reference to John Philip Sousa. It looks like a trombone case, but yeah. But giving him his leg is very nice, and now he has like a robot leg. And one more thing he has to get used to about the future. But the real thrust of this is you go back to Haven, which is of course the inhuman, totally not Adelan place that the Inhumans on Earth sort of set up a colony on, which we saw in previous episodes, and we see Jing in this episode. Is it Jing or Zhang or Zhang? Zhang.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's French.
I think it was Jiaying or something.
Jiaying, that's it. Jiaying. Which, of course, is Daisy's mom, with Mr. Hyde, Kelvin Zabu, for those who remember. And Jiaying is leader of the Inhumans, and when they come there to seek help for Yoyo, they at first they're a little skeptical because they say, "Oh, you're Inhuman." And it's weird because they could have sent Daisy, but again, they didn't want another Mac and his mom kind of moment.
Right. And Daisy's already known to make decisions on her own.
Yeah. And it's like, if could she have actually controlled herself if she met her mom before she was super evil? And that would be weird. Although there's kind of a suggestion in this that the other girl that we see, it's not official, but it kind of suggests that's her sister.
Right.
Which is an interesting idea. And I wonder if they're going to approach that next episode, or maybe the episode after that. Because next episode, it's again another. It looks like it's going to be a bottle ship episode, a ship in a bottle episode. But as it stands, Daisy's mom apparently has another ward, which is another girl whose name I'm now blanking on. Aura, yes, because I turned off Cora, yes, I turned off the IMDb. So I need to go back to that. I don't need to know who any of these actors are or the characters are playing. But because she says, I've always been there for you, and I would sing you songs as a baby. Kind of implies, she's the leader of the colony. Maybe she was just very close to her because she was going to be one of the Inhumans who got to experience the Terrigen. But at the same time, it seems that sounds really close. And I think there's going to be a reveal that that's Daisy's older sister, who she never got to meet for whatever reason, possibly because she blew herself up. Which also raises the question whether or not we will see Mr. Hyde, Kelvin Zabu, before the end of this. Because Kelvin Zabu, of course, was a big bad in the first season, and the second season, and I believe the third season even. I think he finally comes into his own in the third season, if I recall correctly. But and it's interesting that she might have this other person in her life. I like the fact that when she grabs when Yoyo goes in, because they say, this is a diviner. It will only respond to an Inhuman. And Yoyo grabs it. And everyone's completely confused because it's not doing anything. It's not supposed to not do anything. It's a prosthetic, and she touches it to her face to show it opening up, which I thought was neat.
It's kind of cool. Like, you almost feel like, Jiaying has been feeding us, feeding them all these tales about, Inhumans and whatnot. And if the thing doesn't work, he almost has a moment like, wait a second, have I been lied to this whole time? Is this whole thing a sham?
You never know. But as I play, they do see. And then you have a neat thing because, of course, what you have to have is they recognize that May has a superpower of empathy, which is funny because it's like the one power you would not associate May with empathy, you know?
Right.
But and of course we got some nice little call outs or some fun little bits there, you know, about how, you know, she felt Yoyo and Mac in the next room, and when they were having their reunion, and she's like, "Oh, don't apologize."
It wasn't all bad. I'm like, "Oh, yeah. Okay."
Well, you know, it is what it is. But you find out that basically they want to know, is there a way to turn off powers? And since they realize that what's happening to Yoyo is actually psychological, which May helps her get through, though not as far as they wanted to go to yet. You know, it is a.
Now, what is the memory that she's seeing there?
I'm not sure. It seems to be like something about. It's like a childhood memory, but it's also like. I guess
like a tactical decision that she made that didn't work out and somebody paid the price for it.
Well, but she was only a kid then. I don't even know if it was supposed to be like, you know, and then everyone died. I think it's kind of like maybe even supposed to be one of those stupid choices you make as a kid that haunt you your whole life.
Yeah.
You know how those are? That you realize how insignificant it was, but in your heart, it is something that overwhelms you. And I kind of wonder if that was maybe what it was supposed to be. There's a whole thing like her father was involved with bad men, and she got sent away.
Yeah.
But then
seems like a little bit of that Spider-Man sort of thing, but in reverse, where she just clams up.
Yeah.
But maybe she'd repressed this memory this whole time, but when the shriek entered her, it sort of resurfaced, and now she's, you know, dealing with the guilt again, and it's blocking her.
I mean, it's a possibility, but of course, because it's psychological, they don't think that's going to help Korra, because, you know, if she could not use her powers, that would be great, but it's not like they can traumatize her into not using her powers, you know? And you get in this thing where, of course, you know, Korra clearly wants to basically because how her power works is the power builds up and then she explodes, which is a bad power to have. I think we can all agree. You know, and they don't know how to control it. It's ironic because, you know, you think about a character like Black Bolt, who, you know, has a similar destructive power, and how he learned to control it by simply not speaking. But of course, finding the trigger for Korra probably is a lot harder than it seems. And she decides she's going to try and kill herself. But then Nathaniel shows up because, of course, Sybil has the time stream and knows everything. And there's a neat point made in this earlier when I think Deke calls Sousa a Neanderthal. And, you know, Enoch says he's nothing like a Neanderthal. He lacks the brow ridge. Basically reminding you, Enoch has been on this planet for many thousands of years.
Yeah, so
probably met Odin once or twice. You know,
and that's got to be only through time travel, right? Not like he. No. So how did he exist in his? Well, like I guess he must have had a robot form to match the Neanderthals.
Oh,
Neanderthals,
or the Neanderthals just didn't care. Or he updated his form to be with the Neanderthals. Or, you know, the Neanderthals and modern humans actually existed at about the same time.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So, yeah, humans and Neanderthals actually, they interacted a lot, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but what were the Chronicoms doing there back then? Their planet was still okay, or was their planet not okay back then?
No, well, because the Chronicoms had anthropologists. In fact, most of the Chronicoms were anthropologists. There were only a few hunters who I think basically were there to make sure that no Chronicom anthropologists decided that, well, now that I'm on this planet, I'm just going to start, you know, interfering with the Prime Directive and such. And that's, I think, what the hunters basically did, is when you broke the rules of being an anthropologist, you got in trouble. But basically, most of the Chronicoms were anthropologists, because that's what they were built to do. Was just to study all the sentient life forms throughout the galaxy, throughout the cosmos, and catalog it for the head Chronicons, which is an interesting point because it actually suggests that all of the threads they're pulling, those are all based on the reports that Enoch sent back. So Enoch has been sending reports back for these last 1,000 years of everything that happened in human society and human culture. Wow. And that's what they're basing what they pulled the threads on. So they haven't addressed that yet, but there's got to be a little bit of guilt for him in there that he's the one that gave them all this information. That's how they can know what to do.
Wow.
Now, arguably, there might have been more than one anthropologist on Earth, but we don't really get a lot of that information about it, So it's weird. It's like, is he just one observer for the whole planet? Like, Watu the Watcher? Which is sort of, I think, what they were trying to go to in this. But, yeah, it's interesting. And so it's a nice reminder of how old Enoch is and how long he has been through all of this. And, of course, along those same lines, how long Coulson's going to be in this.
Right, and how, the 20 years he spent without them shouldn't really have bothered him so much.
But it does, because it doesn't matter that he is a robot. He still has feelings, even if he doesn't know why he has feelings. He's in a weird existential place, because he is going through your basic existential crisis where you say, am I just the responses in my neurons? But for him, he knows he is just the responses in his neurons, but he also doesn't know if that's all he is. So it's a complex story that he's going through, and that's what he's dealing with. And we can see that at the very end when he has to shut himself off, and he even makes the point, let me shut myself off.
Yeah. Because
at the end, it's a very hard thing to realize. Yeah, my friends can shut me off whenever they want.
I think it's also like that he's got to go to that place of nothingness, and that's scary and daunting.
It is, I'm sure. There's a lot of levels on this, but I actually do remember when Data actually had to tell Riker and them how to turn him off. And he says, okay, look, I have the ability, there is a way you can turn me off, and, here's the reboot button. And he says, well, why did you never tell us this? He says, well, if you had an off button, would you tell people? It's kind of a scary idea that anyone can just go and push the button. But that's what Coulson deals with. Of course, in this, we basically, we get a lot at the end because, of course, Nathaniel convinces Cora to help him and his Hydra crew, or his Leviathan crew, or his now Sybil crew, to go take over all the Inhumans. And basically Nathaniel's going to say, yeah, we're going to steal everybody's powers, and we're just going to give up powers to anybody. Which is disturbing and problematic in a lot of different ways. But that's how we end this episode, except for the fact that after, of course, Yoyo does realize, she doesn't always have to go back, which is, honestly, they've always been a little loose with her character.
I'm not sure I understand what she meant by that.
So originally her character, the actual character Yoyo in the comics, what her power is she can travel anywhere at super speed, but as soon as she travels there, she has to travel back to where she left. So she can, as an example, she can be in her house, and she can, at super speed, run out of her house to a bank, empty out the bank, and run back to her house. At super speed, no one can see her. But she always has to go back to that point she starts. That's why she was called Yoyo.
Interesting. That's really interesting.
That was always Yoyo's power, and then a couple times they kind of played loose with it, where they just had her have basic super speed. They didn't have her do something and then have to go back to the place she was at. And, but that's sort of what she realizes. So in this one now, she realizes she doesn't always have to go back to the place that she's from, and that's what's the mental block. Not so much, and I guess the idea is she can go to this other place, but she didn't want to have to go back because, of course, in the past was pain, is the idea. So cool how they all played out. Really enjoyed the whole thing. And there's a lot going on with that. And she does solve the problem. She runs back and she gets she pulls the plug, but then we see that didn't do it. And next episode we're gonna get problems. Anything else you want to say about this episode, Mozzie?
No, I think we got to it.
Yeah, I gotta say, there's a lot going on in this episode, but when you're done with this episode, and now you say, well, now what do I do for the next, week or so until the next episode comes out? What I would suggest is that you go over to hunterkiller.com and help PI, private investigator Michelle Gray, figure out an old cold case. She'll give you the evidence to sort through. Some ciphers that you'll have to decode and piece together all the clues and solve the crime. It's kind of like an escape room delivered to your house every week, which sounds fun to me. I don't know about you. But if that's not your bag, you just say, I listen to podcasts, that's what I do. Well, why are you listening to them on substandard headsets, Mozz? When you could just go over to tweakedaudio.com, that's tweakedaudio.com, I'm going to guess, and go there and just purchase yourself some of the finest audio equipment made in the world today. And if you don't want to do that, you know what? Just buy something else. Buy whatever the heck you want. Go down to their show notes, click on the Amazon link. That's going to take you to Amazon where you can buy whatever you want. And from there, once you bought it, you got it. And costs you nothing. You lose nothing in doing this. Helps out the company. Gives a couple of shekels to Master Doom, and what more can we ask for you to do? Nothing. Nothing but click a button and now do what you were going to do anyway. I think that is literally the least you can do. Anyway, but in the meantime, if anyone wants to not do any of that and spit in our eye, how can they do that, Mozz? How can they do that?
Well, they can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com. Or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MozzManzor.
And if you'd like to write to me in that old-fashioned email way the way our Mozz and Poz once did, do so at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivity, all one word, at gmail.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter as I live tweet Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and other things every week. But mostly Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. at 10 o'clock, because that's really the only show I live tweet. At Charlie Hesser. That's CHARLIE. Yes, S-E-R. Look for the two E's in the middle.
For quality. Bing!
Thank you, Mozz. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you have been debriefed from the super secret, top secret, encrypted podcast for the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You can tune in next week when me and Mozz will do this all again. And until that time, just remember, 'nuff said.
'Nuff said.